What's up? Welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of Dua Lipa's third album, Radical Optimism. It's been over 4 years since the last Dua Lipa album, and between now and then, of course, Dua, one of the A-list top-tier pop stars we have. Right now, she's number 7 for Spotify monthly listeners. Dua has just become ubiquitous. Of course, her last album, Future Nostalgia, many hits spawned from that, like Don't Start Now and Levitating in particular, that had a massive long tail. And since that album, it's been some time. I think that album is largely associated with the pandemic, of course, in terms of its release, but then also the long tail the music had, the delayed world tour once that finally happened. And then Dua was able to kind of parlay that success and continued momentum with Dance the Night off the Barbie soundtrack, which was a big hit as well, and Dua was in that movie. She was in Argyle earlier this year as well. She's also now in a high-profile relationship with Caleb Turner. It's a good-looking couple. We stand for sure. And now it's time for the new album, the third album, and it comes with a lot of expectations, I would say, because the last two, Dua did not have the status she now has. And a lot has been made about Dua Lipa's artistry or some lacking aspects to it from some corners. The lore or lack thereof with Dua's pop stardom, the fact that Dua is a very private person, doesn't really lean into her celebrity in that regard, it's certainly been a talking point. Although not as strong as her last two albums, Dua Lipa's third album, Radical Optimism, is a strong pop effort. Dua Lipa has noticeably left her disco era behind from Future Nostalgia and is still making dance pop. There's nothing out of the ordinary from the Dua Lipa sound with this Radical Optimism album, but it's certainly a departure. I think if there's a quote issue with Radical Optimism, it's just so much that there's not massive hits, massive pop bangers on here to the degree we're used to from her last albums with songs like New Rules or Don't Start Now or Levitating. There's nothing really on that level with Radical Optimism, although there are certainly some highlights. I think the song French Exit in particular is one of the highlights of Dua Lipa's career. That song is tremendous. The floor remains high though because Dua Lipa knows how to make bops. The hooks on this album are still great, and Dua's singing voice remains very striking. And even if we're not reaching the highest of highs of her past work, I think there's still a lot to take away from Radical Optimism. Thinking about the genre decisions with this album, I think it's notable that Dua kind of switched up the collaborators for this album. The key four people, I guess you could say, would be Kevin Parker of Tame Impala, of course, Danny Harrell, formerly of PC Music, Carolyn Allen, notably a co-writer of New Rules, and also Tobias Jesso Jr., who's a well-established pop songwriter. Ian Kirkpatrick is still here. He's on only 2 songs this time. Obviously, he has quite the history with Dua, but it's pretty clear that Dua wanted to do a new sound. I guess it's funny to think about that because Dua was so widely associated with the revival of like 80s disco and mainstream pop music when Future Nostalgia blew up, of course, when it came out in March 2020. And it makes sense that Dua wanted to continue to do something else. Of course, Future Nostalgia was not like her self-titled debut album either. Frankly, I actually think there are some really cool moments of Radical Optimism that really bring me back to that self-titled album and kind of lend themselves more to that original like Dua 1.0 sound, which I thought was pretty cool. Just kind of jumping into the track list here, I think right away, it feels like Dua music, End of an Era, track 1, super up-tempo. When the drums pick up, it like really starts going. Then track 2, you have Houdini, which is the lead single off this album. And I think that song has a really good start. And I think, again, if you're going to kind of crystallize what Radical Optimism is, Houdini, it's not a Don't Start Now. It's a good song. It's a catchy, fun, upbeat Dua song. Dua's good on the song. It is catchy. It's fun to listen to. It's just not quite at the level of some of her top tier bangers. And I think we just kind of have to grapple with that. Like that's what happens when you have artists that have very massive highs. They can't always hit those highs again. It's okay. So I think Houdini, it's a good song, but to me, when I first heard it, I was a little underwhelmed by it. I think in the context of the album, it fits a lot better. Then we get to track 2, Training Season, which I think has a really strong chorus. I love the mixing on this. Kind of ABBA invoking, and you think about this song, again, like in the context of Dua's last time she had her second single come out. Like this doesn't really match up with Physical as much. That was a very pumping up song, very engaging song. Training Season, to me, it's almost a hair understated despite the name. Next song, These Walls, again, very up-tempo drums, but kind of slower verses. I think Dua's kind of flexing with the singing there. The next song, What You Doing, I thought was pretty groovy. But then we get to track 6, French Exit. And to me, this is like the platonic ideal Dua Lipa song. Like, the drums sound great, the acoustic guitar starts to kick in, and then you get Dua Lipa's singing voice, where it's like, this is like exactly what makes her so great, is just that smoky, like silky singing that she can do, which is very striking. It's very noticeable. And just that style from her, I think, that's the best version of when she sings. Very reminiscent of stuff off the first album. And I mean, you get like the everybody's still dancing part where like the vocals are double. This song just sounds so cool. And I found it very catchy and revisiting, even if it's not like the traditional, like, this is the catchy pop song, a la a song like Houdini. So I think French Exit to me is a clear highlight off this album. One of my favorite Dua songs. And again, if you're going to like pick apart Radical Optimism, the issue is that a lot of these other B-sides don't quite hold a candle to some of Dua's other B-sides, right? Like, I think of Future Nostalgia had bangers down the track list, songs like Hallucinate and Love Again, right? I don't know if we're quite at that level this time. Next song, Illusion, single 3. Definitely my favorite of the singles. I think this is just classic Dua dance pop. Like, Dua can make these songs in her sleep, but man, this chorus is really sticky. And I don't know if you can say much more now. Like, this song is a banger. This song should be a big hit. Falling Forever, this is one of the Ian Kirkpatrick songs. Kind of like a power ballad vibe. Honestly, definitely a bit of a switch from Dua, but very impassioned singing. The next song, Anything for Love, starts out very piano ballady until those synths start to show up, and it really kinds of changes what it's doing. Another Ian Kirkpatrick collab. Second to last song, Maria, very strong chorus, kind of picks the tempo up from those past few songs. I think the singing from Dua is also very strong on this one. And then we had the last song, Happy For You, the closer, kind of reminiscent of the last closer, Boys Will Be Boys, you know, in terms of like the lyrical sentiment and whatnot. I've seen some criticism of Dua Lipa's persona when it comes to thinking about her music, and I think that's totally fair. Like, she doesn't lend herself to the most interesting discussion. The whole, like, does Dua Lipa have any lore? Like, is Dua Lipa interesting enough to have eras, you know? I get that thing. And she's not the only pop star where this applies to, of course. I also don't think that's that big of a problem. You know, we don't need every pop artist to be someone giving us Easter egg on Easter egg and just demanding constant attention. I think the fact that Dua Lipa is really good at what she does, that's fine. And if you like listening to her music, that should be good enough. It's good enough for me. And, you know, I loved her on tour. I thought she was tremendous on tour. Obviously, she's really, I don't want to say she's beaten the dancing bad allegations, but she's a significantly better and more impressive performer than she was originally. And of course, I saw her in 2022. I'm sure she'll get even better. So I'm looking forward to seeing her next on tour again, even if this is not my favorite of her albums. And I just remain a big fan. I think she's just an artist with a really high floor. And even if we're closer to the floor than the ceiling on Radical Optimism, I think a lot of artists would happily take that, you know, as they continue their career. And of course, she's still quite young. She's turning, 28, 29 later this year. So I'm sure we'll be getting another Dua album soon. I'll be curious if we have another 4-year wait. Probably not, you know, because the pandemic and the protracted nature of the tour kind of delayed Future Nostalgia's finishing up, and she's mentioned more music coming. So hopefully we'll get this be 2-year wait and Dua can really stick around. But either way, she remains ubiquitous. So it's not like things are going bad for her. I feel like, again, kind of speaks to just how strong and great she's been doing. The fact that we're nitpicking to this degree. But yeah, let me know, what did you think of Dua Lipa's third album, Radical Optimism? How would you rank it among her previous works? What was your favorite song? And for more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.